Are you treating some offenders much more harshly than others, and therefore some victims are getting a far worse deal than others? It's really toxic politics. And when you suddenly get 50 police chiefs, so all 43 for England and Wales, plus a few others, coming out publicly and saying, well, actually, there is a very real risk you undermine public trust in the justice system with this. It just shows you the scale of this issue. And I think this is if Andy Burnham was not fully aware of what it is like to be Prime Minister in the UK after his initial weeks in power, he's certainly getting a taste of it with this one.
Well, it may be August, but it hasn't prevented Andy Burnham wading into two very thorny political issues: the early release of prisoners and small boat crossings in the Channel. Let's talk to Steve Swinford, the political editor of the Times. Morning, Steve.
Good morning. Even
how we've written the introduction to this item, I think, is interesting. Andy Burnham wading into two very thorny political issues. He's the Prime Minister, and yet we still sort of give him this pass a little bit to say, well, what does honest Andy think about a situation? Whereas Keir Starmer, we'd have said, you're the boss, you've been elected to fix this, why are you not fixing it?
Yeah, I mean, look, he is a new Prime Minister, but this is the point. This is the week when his premiership is hitting reality. So you can go on vibes to a degree in your first week. You can have a little bit of a honeymoon normally when you first get into power. But right now, this is it. There are three really big issues, well, maybe four, but three particular ones that are grabbing the issues at the moment. Early release is a massive tectonic issue coming down the line that is going to be, it would be a huge problem for any Prime Minister at any point to deal with. It is really difficult. Thousands of very dangerous, very violent offenders will be released. You've got mega dinghies crossing the Channel with record numbers of people in them, which is a really difficult thing. You've got an issue that he is trying to have of dispersing asylum seekers to more middle class issues, which is a fight that he wants to have. And then on top of that, you've got Drought, and they've got an emergency meeting on Drought today. So three really big, chunky issues. And this is the reality of governing, right? That you actually, as much as you might want to set the weather yourself, it's how you respond to these things that defines you.
Well, let's talk about those three issues then. That's probably a useful way of structuring our conversation. On the police chiefs, 43 police chiefs have said early release is actively dangerous. I'm very struck by Burnham basically said, I've inherited this, I'm going to review it to make sure two bad people don't get let out of prison. That includes the killers of Andrew Harper. He then tells you he can't do anything about it. He then tells us he's increasingly confident he can do something about it. Is that I'm just thinking, if that had been any of his predecessors, he would have been roasted for that, and his popularity would have plummeted. And yet, that doesn't seem to be happening to him.
It hasn't happened yet, but look, this is a very live and dangerous story for the Prime Minister, and it's going to get worse. So let's say he succeeds in stopping the release of PC Harper's killers. Fine. There are still thousands of very dangerous people who are going to be let out of jail from October, and there are going to be a succession of really, really difficult headlines and difficult stories with victims of very serious offences going public and rightly saying this is wrong. Why is this happening? And it's happening because we don't have enough prison space. But if you are the Prime Minister actually overseeing that, it's a really difficult story and issue to navigate, and that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to show he's on people's side, but already it's putting backs up in government, because the Ministry of Justice is saying, look, we gave you the options, you chose an option to go forward, we spelled out the risks, and now you don't like it, and you've asked Alex Norris. So on Monday night they asked Alex Norris, the Justice Secretary, to come up with a solution to the PC Harper issue, but also a broader issue to stop so many people being released. Now, that was a very sudden change in position, and it was so sudden that Alex Norris was actually flying off on his holiday at the point that Number 10 got in touch to tell him. So he's now going to be working all through his holiday, but it just exemplifies how rapidly this is moving. And there is concern among some in government, and this is not all, but among some in government, that these shifting positions are just totally unfair on victims, because you give them one set of facts and one world in which they're living in, and then you change it. And then you get this whole question of a hierarchy of victims. Are you treating some offenders much more harshly than others, and therefore some victims are getting a far worse deal than others? It's really toxic politics. And when you suddenly get 50 police chiefs, so all 43 for England and Wales, plus a few others, coming out publicly and saying, well, actually, there is a very real risk you undermine public trust in the justice system with this. It just shows you the scale of this issue. And I think this is if Andy Burnham was not fully aware of what it is like to be Prime Minister in the UK after his initial weeks in power, he's certainly getting a taste of it with this one.
And does he get credit on the Channel crossings? He'll want to keep going till it's eradicated. Now, that's honest. It's not wrong. Is that any different materially to saying, I'm going to smash the gangs or stop the boats, which is what his immediate predecessors said? Does he get credit for saying, I want to do something, versus I am going to do something?
Look, the proof of the pudding's in the eating. It always is. So with Rishi Sunak, he made a catastrophic error in his campaign when he said he wanted to stop the boats, full stop, by the time of the next election. Andy Burnham is not saying he wants to eradicate, his word, small boat crossings he hasn't put a timeline on it. There's no date on it. But either way, he knows that unless numbers continue to go down, it's going to come back as an issue. And migration emerging again as a big issue. This mega-dinghies issue is symbolic. The issue of asylum dispersal that's hitting the various parts around the country. That is only going to benefit one person. And that person is probably going to end up being Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK, who wants the national conversation to be about migration.
Interesting.
So, I mean, Andy Burnham yesterday was talking about changing tactics to deal with these new mega dinghies we're seeing crossing the Channel. We can't work out what that change in tactics is. We have no evidence of what's actually shifting, because the key is still stopping them before they leave the beaches and working with the French on that and trying to get the gendarmes to intervene to stop the crossing. So that is going to be increasing questions, I think, about what are they actually doing differently to deal with this issue.
And finally, Cobra meeting on the heat today. I think it's this afternoon. I mean, he can't do anything about the drought. He can't do anything about the heat. Is this a meeting for the sake of having a meeting, or is this actually going to look at, this is not going to be the last summer where this is going to be a problem?
I mean, there's loads of stuff that needs to be discussed on this, and I think it clearly is worthy of a Cobra meeting, because you've got a combination of wildfires, and we need to discuss, do the fire services have the support they need? There are very, very real food issues that are coming down the line, because farmers are trying to farm without water. And as we know, you can't, water is key to life. So how do they do that, and what are the alternatives? And could we start to see shortages of some products? All of these things will be discussed. They are all of national consequence. But ultimately, the weather is the weather, and there is a limit to what you can do. But you can certainly ensure that farmers and others have the support that they need to do their jobs.
Yeah, we spoke to someone who's the boss of Lurpak who talks exactly about that. We'll see what happens. We'll see what comes out of it today. I know it's the middle of August, Steve, but it's good to have you back.
Very good to be back, Stig.
That's Steve Swinford there, the political editor of The Times.